What's going on, guys? Mike Gastin here. Today we're going to do a little bit of a ramble. I want to have an informal discussion. It's going to be a little long, but I want to use this time to kind of flesh out my thoughts on my creative process, and in so doing, maybe share some experiences and insight with you guys for those of you that would care. If you're not into kind of an informal, long, kind of rambly meditation, no hard feelings, you can click off. Do me a favor, though, hit that like button. Everybody, hit that like button. Let YouTube know, hey, Uncle Mike, he's worth it. But I want to talk about creative process today. When I look in the mirror and I look at how old I am, when I reflect on my age, I can't help but be a little bit discouraged or maybe disappointed by the amount and the quality of the content that I put out. Now, I've done a lot of work in life. This isn't about I haven't been productive enough as a human being. I haven't worked hard enough. I've raised a family. I've run businesses. I mean, I'm running a consulting practice right now that keeps me pretty busy. I work hard, and I've accomplished enough. I mean, I'm not disappointed that materially I'm not more successful, et cetera. But I'm not happy with the amount of content I put out, and there's a reason for that. I have loved the concept of publishing since I was young. When I was in high school, I was taking classes at a very noted, well-regarded school for commercial printing, Rochester Institute of Technology. I would take night classes there while I was in high school on commercial printing, commercial paper making, all that kind of stuff. I was enthralled with the concept of books and magazines and newspapers and radio and television broadcasts, just this idea of publishing information out, whether in physical things or through the airwaves, this ability to communicate ideas and to communicate beauty and to do projects where you could get your work that you've made out there. I just love this concept. And I've loved it since I was young. And then I kind of got caught up in the desktop publishing revolution. Now, those of you who hear desktop publishing and you're like, what was that? Essentially, computers revolutionized publishing. Typically, let's say you want to write a newsletter, or let's say you want to do a magazine. You write all your articles, you get your photos, but then you have to bring it to a designer. The designer has to lay it all out, and that was all done mechanically, physically, not on a computer. And then that had to go to the printer, who then, or the pre-press shop, that would have to shoot all this stuff, make it camera ready. You'd have to shoot it. That would then be made into plates and so on. You had all these intermediaries between you, the creator of the work, and the finished piece, the magazine, the book, whatever it was. And, the computers, this seems maybe obvious to people now, but computers acted as a disintermediating power. It swept away all the people. If you were the creator, you could lay it out yourself. If you had some design chops, or even if you didn't, you could lay it out. You could choose your fonts. You could drop your photos in how you wanted to. You could take all that stuff and then bundle it into camera-ready art on a little floppy disk that you could then hustle over to your local Kinko's or a printer or whoever and have them produce it for you. So the internet didn't necessarily give us the publishing platforms yet, the way we think of them now, like YouTube and Instagram and blogs and so on. But the computers allowed us to cut out the middleman and be desktop publishers. And that evolved into digital publishers. People would make these CD-ROMs, and you could put your content out digitally. And then, of course, websites and, welcome to 2021. And the world's your oyster. So the reason I bring all that up is to say, here I am. I've lived through this revolution, and I was enthralled with the concept of publishing from the beginning of it, before it even happened. And yet here I am at 54, and I've got a nice little YouTube channel. Love you guys. But why have I not put more content out? Why have I not written more essays that are meaningful? Why have I not put more papers out? Why have I not published at least a book? Even if I self-publish it, my goodness. Why do I struggle even now to get videos out and to get content out the door? What is the problem? And I've felt this acute sense of an inability to get work out. And it's not for lack of ideas. This isn't like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't have ideas. I need ideas. Guys, tell me. No, I've got all kinds of insights. I've got all kinds of concepts. I've got all kinds of ideas. What I want to talk about today, though, isn't just that, I'm complaining, but I've had over the last month and the last, a couple of months, last week, couple of weeks, some insights that I think are dramatic. Now, the proof will be in the output. The proof will be in the proverbial pudding. But I want to share some of these with you because I think, I'm guessing I'm not the only one that maybe experiences what I'm experiencing. So I'm just sharing it just because it helps me to articulate. So I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And if you're listening and watching, maybe you gain something from it. Maybe you get an insight that helps you too. So the issue for me has not been coming up with ideas. And the issue isn't really about craft or capability. I'm a pretty good writer, all things considered. I mean, I'm not saying I'm a great writer. I'm just saying I'm pretty good. I'm pretty serviceable. I've spent time learning the craft. For clients will often ask me, write our story, write our brand story, write our advertising copy, create our tagline. I'm capable. There are people that are way better than me at that in the business, but I'm capable. So it's not a matter of craft. It's not a matter of lacking technology. It's not a matter of lacking ideas. Got all those things. Here's what I think typically happens. I get an idea, and it's usually kind of a grand, kind of broader vision, not a religious vision. It's not some type of prophetic, metaphysical experience. It's just this vision of the thing, and the thing is big. It's not defined necessarily, but I know the essence of it. I've got that flash of insight or inspiration. I can see the thing, this essay, I'm going to write about this thing. It's going to be really good. I'm going to address this big topic. I'm going to bring all this to bear, and it's going to be wonderful. And then I say, okay, great. And then I sit down to do it, and I get stuck. I can't get past that vision. And I've wondered for years, is it that I'm a perfectionist? Am I so hung up on the fact that I just can't make that vision reality that I do nothing? Am I biting off more than I can chew? Am I kind of taken up with ideas that I don't have the intellectual horsepower to actually deliver on? Is my mouth writing checks that my face can't cash? I don't know. How does that work? That idiom. Anyway. Is it that I don't have the right process? Do I need a better workflow? Do I need a better process? Do I need better tools? Do I need better organization? All these things, and I've tried different things, and it just doesn't happen. So this year, I started reading a book by Ian McGilchrist. It's called The Master and His Emissary. I want to say it came out in 2008, 2009. And I've been having it on my shelf. It's been sitting on my shelf for maybe, 3 years. And I've been wanting to get at this book. I heard him interviewed by Russ Roberts on the Econ Talk podcast years ago. And I thought, this guy sounds fascinating. I could listen to him talk all day. This book is it's like a doorstop. It was a lot of pages, which I don't mind that, but it was dense. It was broken up into two halves. The first half was really, really dense, technical information about the brain. And the book is really all about the two hemispheres of the brain, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, how they interact with each other, how they are evolving, and how these hemispheres and the structure of the brain and the way things are working influences the world that we are creating for ourselves. The book, and he did this on purpose, is broken into two halves. That first half is very technical, very detailed. The second half is more of his philosophical argument. Now, he's no punter. This guy, he's a psychiatrist. He's clinically trained in the human brain. He's a scientist, researcher, et cetera. But I think he's also got a lot of philosophy and those broader, more I don't want to say softer, but not scientific. So he's kind of a dual person in some ways, very scientific on one way and very philosophical in another. And so the first half of the book is all this information. The second half is this broader talk about society and the impact of these two hemispheres and what's going on, and looking at some history like ancient Greeks all the way up through medieval ages and into modernity and postmodernity and so on. Fascinating book. Here's the aha that I had. What McGilchrist says is that the right hemisphere of the brain typically looks at things that are novel and new. You get into a new situation, that's your right hemisphere kind of clicking on, and you're just taking it all in. You're just like wide-eyed and awestruck, and you're taking in this information. And it doesn't have to be grand. It could just be you're driving in a new part of town, you're on a trip, or you're confronted by a new person, or you're in a new situation, new job. That's your right hemisphere just working away. It's responsible for that novel, new thing. The right hemisphere is also responsible for music. It tends to be mute. It's not good with the language. That's going to be the other hemisphere, but it's very good with music. So it's expressive. It knows how to express. It knows how to move and to have thoughts, but it's more about music and art. So you got the novel, the new, music, art, and then on top of that, the right hemisphere is interested in the big picture. It wants context. It wants the bigger picture. It wants to understand how things work together in the whole. It doesn't want to get into the nitty-gritty. It doesn't want to break things down. It's interested in that bigger picture. I'm kind of looking around like there's a bigger picture around me. That's the right hemisphere. Now you can imagine where we're going to go with the left hemisphere. It's kind of opposite. The left hemisphere is interested in those things which are familiar and are known. The left hemisphere is all about making things known. It's all about understanding things and grasping things and controlling things. So it wants things that are known. And when it sees something, it wants to break it down in its parts to understand it. It's the side of the brain that wants to take something apart to understand it. It wants to see the guts. It wants to get in. How does this thing work? It's the side that is interested in science. How do we categorize this thing? How do we break this thing down into its constituent parts? How do we categorize it? How do we define each part? How do we understand what's going on with each part? So whereas the right side of the brain wants context, the left side of the brain, the left hemisphere, is abstracting everything. It's taking it out of its context, and yet it's trying to define it. It wants to understand it as a standalone thing, to categorize, to generalize it. The left hemisphere is fascinated and drives for systems and process and structure. It makes categories. It makes definitions. It makes systems and frameworks. That is your left hemisphere. Now, McGilchrist makes the argument, and we don't need to get into that too much for this video, but he makes the argument that in a perfect world, which is not going on right now, his concern, by the way, is that the left hemisphere is taking over. And the more we make these systems, the more we make the external world all about science and breaking and reducing everything down to its scientific explanation, the more our world is systematized, the more our world is abstracted, the more our world is made into frameworks and process and structure, the more the right hemisphere struggles to thrive, and the more the left hemisphere becomes ascendant and actually usurps its position, which is dehumanizing in many ways. But what McGilchrist argues is what should happen is that the right hemisphere sees the whole, hands it over, the left hemisphere disassembles the whole into its parts, understands, gets under the hood, tries to figure out what's going on, scientifically categorizes, organizes, systematizes the whole into its constituent parts, then ideally hands it back to the right hemisphere, who then looks at the whole again, but with much more depth, much more meaning, much more information, much more layered and more beautiful. And so when these hemispheres are working together, we as people go through this kind of beautiful aha, and then we deconstruct the thing, and then we hand it back and reconstruct it in a way where we understand so much more about it. So you could, as an example, you could have a tribe of people that are terrified by thunderstorms because to them, thunder is the gods angry and punishing. And the loud noise, it's scary, and so on. That's just this kind of very primitivistic, experiential view of a thunderstorm. And yet in our scientific world, we've broken those things down. We've reduced them. We've taken all the sacredness out of them, all the mystery out of them. And so a thunderstorm, we know, is just the building up of positive and negative ions, and the clouds are full of water droplets, and that's from condensation from the evaporation off the ocean, and blah, 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 blah. And that's how you get thunder, lightning, and rain. Now, we're tempted to just leave it there and say, see, we understand this. We can control it. We can understand it. We've broken it down. We now grasp it. while the primitive person is just terrified at the mercy of this thing. And what McGilchrist is arguing is that we should then hand that back to the right-hand side. Let it be musical. Let it be a bit artistic. Let it be a beautiful thing. You can still be moved by the power of the thunderstorm. It can still retain some of its sacred elements. It can still retain some of its mystical elements. And at the same time, we can understand these other things that are happening, these scientific, naturalistic, materialistic things that are happening to cause the storm. So I'm not going to make a big judgment call on the whole mystical, all that kind of stuff. My point just being, in learning about his argument, which is well documented by science, but also very beautiful and interesting, I had an insight to my own situation. I kind of had two levels of insight. The first level was, I asked a question: what if I'm kind of stuck, whereas I have this right hemisphere moment of inspiration, this flash, and I see a big thing, I see a hole. What if I was able to develop a work process that allowed me to then take that big thing and hand it off to the left hemisphere to break down into its parts and then hand back? What if my problem isn't so much process or the right tools, or the right project management or time management? You need to get up at 5 in the morning and write 500 words every day, and eventually you'll have a whole book. And what if it's none of that? What if you're just getting stuck in your right hemisphere? And then to be able to create the thing that you want to create, you have to allow the left hemisphere to just break this thing down. Don't worry about its structure. Don't try to come up with an outline that makes sense. Don't worry about, trying to structure and organize this whole thing in a way that retains the beautiful vision that you had. Have the beautiful vision, and then set to work on decomposing that beautiful vision. Break it down into its parts. Break the parts into their parts. And then once you've done all that, you can reconstruct it in a way that's even more meaningful, more sound, and more impactful, and hopefully more beautiful than the vision you had in the first place. And the nice thing is that it will become materialized. It'll become real. It won't just be a thing in your head, but now you'll be able to share it with the world around you. Okay, so I was like, wow, there could be something there. I think I'm onto something. And so then I set about to say, okay, well, let me do this. And so I had this idea, and I started, okay, big, beautiful thing. Let me just start breaking it down. And I'm starting to write out some notes. And then I stalled again. I'm like, this isn't working for me. And this is where I had the second level insight. And I think this is important. And if you're with me so far, thank you. Hopefully this is interesting. The second level insight was, I initially was thinking that my work process should kind of replicate what McGilchrist was talking about should happen in a perfect world. Beautiful idea, break it down, categorize, define, reconstitute into something new and beautiful that represents the initial idea, but with more dimension, more depth, and more meaning. But that would be a sit-down process that would happen behind the scenes, then I would deliver to you, the people of the world, the beauty that I have created. I have no ego. That's not true. And I realized that's a misapplication potentially for me. And I think there are many ways that you could go about exploring and experimenting with this kind of framework, I guess I'll call it, the right, left, right. I'm not sure what to call it. So essentially what I realized is you could take those parts. So let's say you just break it down. You make lists. Like I did a mind map on a topic. Boom, I just listed out all these things that are related to the topic. I've got like 50 things on a page related to one idea. Not like economics, but just like one idea I was going to do a little article on, and all these things hanging off of it. And here was my opportunity. It was like, okay, in your forgetting about the context and the left brain, write a blog post on one aspect of one thing on your mind map. Like take one bubble, profits over people, that relates to moral marketing. I want to do this whole white paper on moral marketing. I've been living this concept that I've been working on about moral marketing, and I've been practicing it in my consulting and so on for many years. I mean, this is a topic I've wrestled with forever. I wanted to write a white paper. I'm like, why can't I just sit down and bang out a white paper on moral marketing? I'm like the expert. I didn't say humble marketing, I said moral marketing. So I'm the expert on that. Like I do it for my clients, even if they don't know I'm doing it. And why can't I just write a paper on this? Why is this so hard? So I broke it all out into its pieces, and even having all those pieces on the table, I'm just overwhelmed. I don't know how to structure. I don't even know where to go with this thing. And I'm just going to vomit 3,000 words on a page. It's going to be crap, and I'm not going to be able to get it to where it needs to be. So the aha was, don't worry about that right now. You know you're going to write your white paper. Park that to the side. You've got your notes. Okay, fantastic. Start working through that mind map that you created where you captured all the different topics, and just start writing blog posts on each one of those topics. Don't write them in the context of anything. Decontextualize them. Just write a blog post on profits over people. That was just one of the bubbles. And so I did that. And in writing that article, and I'm going to publish that, I'm just going to put that up to my website. I might create a video on that. In writing that one thing, I kind of knew I captured that concept, but I started unpacking it, and I had some insights even in unpacking it. Like I've got a great little 800-word insight piece that's ready to go to my website in a couple days here. I'm going to just work through that mind map and publish all kinds of little micro pieces of content. I say micro would be like Twitter. All kinds of smaller chunks of content, not meaning, oh, I'm writing this chapter, I'm going to publish one chapter at a time. No, see that you've already created your structure, and now you're just delivering it in parts. I'm not going to do that. I'm decomposing this whole thing. I'm letting it go to its constituent parts. I'm going to just define and categorize and over time organize all these things. And once I've done that, once I've written 50 different posts on all these different topics, then, and those things are published and they're out there, that's work that I've shipped, then I can take them and reconstitute them into something beautiful. Not meaning now buy my book and it's all my blog posts just reorganized. You know, we just order them and chapterize and throw some pages and a couple illustrations. No, but I mean, you could do that. That could be your answer. But I could then take all this thinking that I've actually written and published it, and each one kind of stand alone. And they might seem kind of weird to people, like, why is he posting on this? It's this. I'm not trying to get your money. I'm just putting my thinking out there. I'm forcing myself to think and to get the thinking out there. Once I've done that and gone through that process, then I can bring all this wonderful content together into a beautiful whole. That's my thinking. So that's my second level insight. The first level insight was this right, left, right. I don't know how you go right, left, right. But my right, left, right kind of journey that I'm going to take. But then when I'm in that left hemisphere mode, I might stay there a long time. And I don't need to do that behind the scenes towards making a beautiful whole. I'm just going to decompose this thing. And in decomposing it, I'm just going to be putting stuff out there for its own sake. And then just trusting that later I will bring this recontextualize, represent, reconstitute so that I can present it, represented to the world. But through the lens of my right hemisphere, that big picture whole. And yet at that point, it will have more structure to it. It will have more layers and depth to it. It'll be something I hope that other people can go, wow, this is a really good piece of work. I'm really grateful for this. And even if they don't, it doesn't matter. I think I will have produced something that pleases me. And that's what I've been after. I want to deliver work that I'm pleased with, that I'm satisfied with, that I say, yes, this represents my creative vision. This represents my desire to get work out there. So that's been my journey. Thank you. That's been my journey. I'm curious if you're still with me on this, what has been your experience around content creation? Are you a writer, an essayist, a blogger? Do you do video? Do you have a podcast? What's been your experience? I have no problem live streaming because it's not content. I mean, it's technically content, but you're not creating anything out of you. It's me just riffing. Live stream is easy. Podcast, pretty much the same. It's pretty easy. You're either interviewing somebody or just picking a topic and riffing on it for the most part. I mean, I know there are podcasts that go a little deeper, that are more creative and take work, but essays, video creation, so on, I find that challenging. But at the same time, it's what I want to do. I'm hungry to do those things, but I find them challenging. And I think that I've unlocked a level of understanding, and I think I've unlocked an approach. I'm not even sure is it an approach, is it a system, is it a process? I don't know. I think that's important right now. that's going to free me up. And so what you're probably going to see on this channel is a proliferation, relatively speaking. You're not going to see a video a day, but you're going to see a lot more content than you have in the past from me. It might not be as tidy. It might not be as packaged. It might not be kind of like, well, here's this topic and I'm going to cover from A to Z. It might be pieces here and there. And I'm guessing some people might like that. Some people might not. I'm still going to be shooting for creating content that has that's more contextualized, it's more cohesive, that's broader in its scope. That's the goal, ultimately, is to create that kind of content. But you're probably going to see these shorter videos that lead up to maybe a longer video that's more in depth, maybe more well thought out, more produced, if you will, not just from a technical standpoint, but just in general, and more complete. So I hope that you'll stick around for that. I'd love to know what your experiences are around content creation. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on some of the things that I've shared. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is this a discussion you'd like to continue? Maybe we can pick it up on my live stream channel. If you're not aware that I've got a live stream channel, just look for Mike Gastin Live. And I am doing a little bit more with that, some office hours and just some informal popping in and doing a stream here and there. Guys, as you know, I love you all. I appreciate your time. I hope this has been useful to you, and I'll catch you in the next video.